Mark Rogers TV, Ohio State talking Buckeyes against the top 10 field that mostly will be playing this weekend in conference championships across the country, but the Buckeyes may be in the clubhouse or they may be on shaky ground depending on your perspective. But if you look at the committee's perspective to date, it seems to be the former. Brandon Zimmerman joins us from Buckeye Battle Cry to break down the college football playoff situation, which is messy, and most of it surrounds the Big Ten, Brandon.
Yeah, it is very messy, but I think that's what we all love about college football. As you and I spoke about 2 weeks ago, I was kind of iffy on if the Buckeyes would make the playoffs if they do not go to the Big Ten championship game. And when I've kind of, after last night when the new rankings came out, or on Tuesday night after the new rankings came out, I'm a little more confident in the Buckeyes making the playoffs now. I think they're in a good spot. I think Michigan sitting at number 5 was kind of best case scenario for the Buckeyes because they're kind of their security guard, protecting them from leaving the top 4. Because the big thing people were worried about was, would Penn State jump them? Would Wisconsin jump them? Would Colorado jump them if Colorado wins the Pac-12 and beats Washington? With Michigan sitting at 5, you've got those 3 teams that the Buckeyes were worried about jumping them now have to jump Michigan too when Michigan beat all 3 of those teams. So I think having Michigan as number 5 was kind of best case for the Buckeyes to ensure them a spot into the top 4 because conference championship or not, I just don't see how you can justify jumping Michigan with Penn State if Michigan beat them 49-10. Wisconsin lost to them, Colorado lost to them. So if they can't jump Michigan, I don't think they can jump the Buckeyes. So I think Buckeyes are kind of firmly in that 2-3 type of spot. I think they're going to be in Phoenix, and I've already got tickets booked.
Good for you. Very, very confident there. Brandon, I've heard all week comparisons made between Ohio State now versus TCU 2 years ago, number 3 before the final weekend, winning a game, dropping to number 6. The reason that doesn't work is that Ohio State just beat the number 3 team in the country. So aside from Alabama and themselves, which they don't play, they had basically the most valuable win in the country. Because nobody's beaten Alabama. So that's the most valuable win in the country, possibly, versus TCU beating Kansas on the final week of the season. We know what Kansas does in football. Typically, when they're not playing Texas, they're one of the worst 5 programs in the country, easily. So you can't make those comparisons. Take off the scarlet and gray. I think Ohio State's going to make it, but should they make it versus Penn State if the Nittany Lions win the Big Ten championship game because of the 2 deciding factors that you could throw out there being the head-to-head and the conference championship?
I think when you look at the number of top 10 wins that the Buckeyes have and the fact that their loss was at Penn State, which is a tough environment during the whiteout, I think you can justify Ohio State making it over Penn State. I don't know if there's many people out there that if Ohio State and Penn State were playing tomorrow would bet against the Buckeyes. It was kind of one of those situations where everything that could go wrong for the Buckeyes did, and Penn State took advantage of every opportunity that they got. So Penn State's a great team. I think, when you look at Ohio State's had 1 loss and it was to Penn State, but then you also had Penn State who lost to Pittsburgh. They don't have the number of wins, top 10 wins like the Buckeyes do. I think you can justify it, but, it's definitely one of those situations where you can see it both ways. Both sides have a valid argument in it. But, based off what the committee says, there really isn't any debate to it. They came out last night and said there's no, the separation between Ohio State and Penn State is pretty significant. So I don't think Ohio State needs to worry about Penn State, barring Penn State coming out and beating Wisconsin, 72-0 type of thing, like the Buckeyes did back in 2014. Yes. Something crazy, then it might start to raise some concerns. But I still think even then, like I said, with having Michigan at number 5, is it still enough for Penn State to jump Michigan when Michigan just demolished Penn State in their head-to-head? So even with the conference champion, I think Michigan's kind of their guard right now. And before the committee can, justify jumping Ohio State with Penn State, they've got to justify jumping Michigan with Penn State. And like I said, I mean, best case for the Buckeyes, I feel like, was Michigan falling to number 5 and not down to 6 or 7 and letting any one of those Big Ten teams jump up in front of them.
Yeah, taking nothing away from a remarkable run by Penn State, that Ohio State win just makes the season. It just stands out above everything else. It's not like Ohio State where, what's the best win? Was it at Wisconsin? Was it at Oklahoma? Well, of course it was Michigan. Well, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
With Penn State, it's the Ohio State game. Their second best win, and I'm just going off the top of my head, has to be Iowa at home.
That is what I was thinking too.
That's the best win that they had. And from the standpoint of the quality of the opponent and the final score, they really took it to the Hawkeyes that particular week. But it was another home game. And their third best home game and overall game would be Minnesota, another quality opponent, like a top 30 team in the country. But Penn State, aside from winning those 3 games at home, on the road, probably Indiana is their best win. And so they haven't done a whole lot away from Happy Valley, and to put them in a college football playoff environment, they may not be quite ready for that. I know I'm conjecturing, and I'm not speaking to their resume, just conjecturing based on opinion, and that's not what I think this should be all about. I think it should be about resume, but we may see a repeat of Michigan State, Alabama if Penn State gets into the playoff.
Yeah, and that's where, you've got to wonder too. I mean, of course, every Penn State fan wants them to make the top 4, but then you have to think too, like, what's better for the Penn State program in the long run? They've made giant strides this year. Is it better for them to go make the playoffs, face Alabama in the first round, and lose by something, 40 points or something, Cotton Bowl, and face a Western Michigan or a Navy and beat them and get a Cotton Bowl type of win, So, of course, they're going to want to go to the playoffs. But as far as long-term success for Penn State, sometimes getting blown out is kind of detrimental for a team more than it is for actually being there type of thing. Look at the Buckeyes, the Buckeyes have been one of the most consistent programs over the last 15, 16 years. They're one of the few teams that have consistently gone out. But if you ask any fan from outside of Columbus, like, what do they think about the Buckeyes? It's, well, they get blown out in big games, because in 2006 they made the championship and got blown out. 2007 they made the championship and got blown out. They've completely dominated before that and after that, but because of those blowouts, it's kind of left long-term effect on the program and the fan base eyes and the recruits' eyes. So Penn State has to kind of weigh that, see if they want to go to the playoffs and possibly get their butts kicked, or do they want to go to another very big bowl game and succeed.
Yeah, it's almost a Super Bowl effect, that it's almost better to be a solid playoff team, go 12-4, lose in the second round, than make it to the Super Bowl and lose on a big stage, especially if you get blown out. So if you ask Buckeye fans, they look more fondly upon the, let's say, 2003 team or 2005 team that won major bowl games in the Fiesta Bowl and finished in the top 5 in the country, versus the 06 and 7 teams, or the 2009 team that went to the Rose Bowl and beat Oregon. Didn't have a shot at a national title, but still finished in the top 5 in the country. And it's a great ending to the season. And you finish in the top 5, and everybody's basically happy.
Yeah, and then you think the year prior in 2008, they probably had a better team, but they lost to Texas in the Fiesta Bowl. And and no one really thinks about that team, but the 09 team, like, all Buckeye fans love that because it was the Rose Bowl and they actually won. So, it's just it's all part of what makes college football so great.
All right. Brandon Zimmerman from the Buckeye Battle Cry joins us each and every Wednesday night to talk Ohio State football and the Buckeyes in the midst of the controversy that is the college football playoff standings right now. Brandon, we appreciate the time.
All right. Thank you, Mark.